Joining us now for World Brief and a review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Adefemi.
Good morning, Dr. Ruben. How are you doing?
I'm good. Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Adefemi. How are you?
Femi Femo.
Thank you.
You were part of the squad that pounded
City 5-1.
No. You know what we call them?
Us.
We call them the stay humble.
Oh, you hear
Stay humble,
they played Kendrick soon as they hit the full-time whistle. Don't play with us.
Stay humble, eh?
Don't play with us.
Stay
Don't play
humble.
with us at home. Aaron, I just let him have peace because he's preparing his segment. If not, I would have dragged his singlet already.
He started lying. He said, no, I wanted that slot to. He said, like, he's humble. Stay humble.
Everybody's humble this morning. Good morning to you. Let me tell you about what is happening around the world. Now, this week begins with a looming international trade war. Now, the Trump administration has planned to impose levies of 25% on goods and 10% on energy products from Canada starting on Tuesday. Now, goods from Mexico will also be subject to tariffs of 25%, while imports from China face 10%. Now, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum have held a call to discuss strengthening ties and economic cooperation in the face of Trump's tariff move, which has drawn global condemnation. Let's take a listen to what Trudeau had to say on Sunday.
Geography has made us neighbors. History has made us friends. Economics has made us partners. And necessity has made us allies. The actions taken today by the White House split us apart instead of bringing us together. Tonight, I am announcing Canada will be responding to the U.S. trade action with 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods. This will include immediate tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods as of Tuesday, followed by further tariffs on $125 billion worth of American products in 21 days' time to allow Canadian companies and supply chains to seek to find alternatives.
Now, with all of this talk on tariffs, I think we should break it down and find out what all of this actually means. So what are import tariffs? Now, to make this as simple as possible, import tariffs, which is the kind of tariff that Trump is levying, are taxes paid on goods imported from other countries. Very, very simple there. Now, there are several types of tariffs, and the kind that Trump is imposing is known as what we call an ad valorem tariff, meaning the tax on imported goods is calculated as a percentage of said product's value. Now, who pays tariffs? Typically, tariffs are paid by domestic importers. Those people are in the business of bringing these goods into a country, and then they pay them to the U.S. Customs and Border Protection agencies. However, economists also say that portions of the cost of tariffs do end up being paid by consumers because in response to tariffs, sellers may well hike up the prices of goods that they are importing for consumers. And finally, what are the impacts of these tariffs coming in by Trump? Well, based on a 2024 study conducted by the Peterson Institute for International Economics, Trump's larger proposed tariff hikes could increase the annual cost to the U.S. consumer by $2,600, which could hit lower-income Americans the hardest. There are also worries that across-the-board tariffs could have a large effect on inflation for American consumers. Now, you remember that when the election was happening, a lot of people were voting for Trump because they felt as though he was going to make things better for Americans who were struggling financially. So very interesting to see what effects these tariffs will have. Moving on to the United Kingdom now, and the UK is set to become the first country to introduce laws against artificial intelligence tools used to generate sexualized images of children. The government announced over the weekend that it would make it illegal to possess, create, or distribute AI tools that generate abusive images, making it a crime punishable by up to 5 years in prison. It will also be a crime punishable by up to 3 years in prison to possess AI pedophile manuals that teach people how to use AI to sexually abuse children. Now, the Internet Watch Foundation, which is a British non-profit focused on combating online abuse, has warned of the growing number of sexual abuse AI images of children being produced in the country. And finally, There are at least 773 people who have been killed in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, the largest city of Goma specifically, and its vicinity in the last week alone. This is amid fighting with Rwanda-backed M23 rebels who captured the city in a serious escalation of an already decade-long conflict. As a result of this heightened violence, the Democratic Republic of Congo's Foreign Minister Therese Kayikumba Wagner has actually called on Arsenal, Bayern Munich and Paris Saint-Germain to end their sponsorship deals with Visit Rwanda amid a worsening humanitarian crisis in the country. Now, the term here is called sports washing. That's what they're talking about, essentially using sports to launder the image of a country. In this example, Rwanda. Now, Paul Kagame has already been very vocal about his efforts to push sports in Rwanda. He has announced a bid to stage a Formula One race, and Kigali is set to be the venue for cycling's World Roads Championships in September. Now, Human Rights Watch say that these deals and events are helping to hide Rwanda's abysmal record of human rights abuses. Those were the words from Human Rights Watch. But I thought that even though I'm, kind of teetering into Aaron's territory there, it does have an international news background when we're looking at what's happening around the world.
But it has very, very international dynamics. I mean, sport mixes up with politics, just like what Saudi is doing with sports washing. I mean, we've talked about that at nauseam here. But real quickly, I think the most important thing to do to them is, and that's why they're calling on the West to intervene in this matter, cut aid to Rwanda. Rwanda is still largely aid-driven. I mean, a couple of times I've touched down in Kigali airports, you always see those United Nations planes, very largely aid-driven. And the last time they made this some level of encroachment where they were supporting this heinous M23 rebel group, what the West did was to cut the aid, threatened to cut the aid. Then, Kagame was ready to do a deal because he doesn't have that size. He doesn't have that money. He's a small economy, just a little over 10 to 16 billion GDP. But he wants to, bid very hard. So a lot of people have started boycotting. Thames, Grammy Award winner today, I'm proud to say, led the way by saying she was not going to have the concert she was supposed to have in Rwanda. In fact, a lot of them abused her, but you can see she's got a Grammy for good measure. Everybody must also rally around. The West must also rally around because the killings continues. I mean, I monitor this United Nations owned radio in Congo called Radio Okapi, which covers a larger part of Congo, from Lubumbashi to almost every area. And he talks about the immense level of, atrocities going on there. And really it's because of minerals, because that area is very mineral. And guess what? Also, across the Kivu River, Rwanda has also discovered oil. So there's a lot of dynamics in the mix we need to talk about. As regards tariff, you see, let the world come down with Trump so that we'll see, as it is on record, he's a man that destroyed the world. He lied to the American people during the campaign. He said those countries will pay the tariff, but now it has shown that it's the American people that will suffer for the tariffs. Now he's now rescinding on his lies by saying that it's going to hurt a little bit. You didn't promise them. You said they were good. Just like you lied in your first term, Donald J. Trump, that you're going to build a wall, Mexico is going to pay for it. Ain't nobody's going to pay for it. But I'm also happy countries like Canada and all they're all coming out to say we're going to stand tall. Slam 25% tariff. They've told their own citizens, don't use American products and all of that. Don't buy their oranges from Florida. Don't buy their bourbon from Kentucky. Don't buy all their materials. In fact, in a game yesterday, in an NBA game, the only Canadian team in the big league, the Raptors, were having a game. When they were singing the Stars and Stripes national anthem, they booed the American national anthem. So everybody will stand with him. He's also going to extend tariff to the EU. That's what he's been bragging about.
Yes, we'll
he said the UK too.
Review,
he mentioned Keir Starmer. So if he wants a tariff war, but he should just remember that Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala did the math, and she stated at Davos that this is going to decelerate economic growth by double digits. So we are in for big economic growth deceleration because we have a called Trump in the White House. Let's go ahead. Let's all go mad.
All right, so let me read Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's X post. This is part of the response to Trump's tariff announcement. Now is the time to choose products made right here in Canada. Check the labels. Let's do our part. Wherever we can, choose Canada. This is the kind of rhetoric that this announcement is encouraging. Canada and America have enjoyed hitherto very good diplomatic relationships and also, economic business relationships. What this means is that, as you already explained, 25 goods coming, some goods, not all, selected goods coming in from Canada would get a 25% tariff. It's also surprising because when he had announced prior to before being sworn in, he had actually said China was going to feel the heavy weight
Yes.
of the tariff, but we saw that it got off lightly,
Yes.
only 10%.
Correct.
And if you look at it, the analysis for this is because when it comes to trade dependence, Canada is more dependent on American goods than China is.
Right.
In fact, China's 80% of China's export goes to countries surrounding and not to the United States of America, unlike Canada, whose biggest trading partner is the United States of America. So whether or not they retaliate, it is going to hurt their economy.
Yes.
It is going to hurt their manufacturers. It is going to hurt their export numbers. But what people are hoping is that common sense would prevail, and perhaps pressure from these other countries who are not taking a line low would prevail on Trump to rethink his decision. Now, it's not tariff for tariff. It is to discourage what is called illegal migration, so that they respond. It's like what he did with Colombia, who then, and I think that Colombia situation empowered him, emboldened him to continue, because they capitulated in under 24 hours after he imposed the 25% tariff going to 50% in a week if they didn't respond. So what he's hoping is that the things he's complained about, importation of fentanyl, so illegal drugs,
Yes.
Migration, response to migration,
Yes.
those are the things that he's targeting. It's not, when it comes to using tariffs as a way to fight these things, let's see how it would work out. It doesn't look like they're going to take this line low or take this lightly, but let's see how this works out.
Okay, Trump was very clear during the campaigns that he was going to deal with immigration. He was also going to deal with illegal drug trafficking. Now, applying tariffs is a way of dealing with that. So at one level, he's keeping campaign promises. Whether that's a good strategy or not, that remains to be seen. Now that he has gone after the three largest trading partners of the United States, China, Canada, Mexico, accounting for 1.6 trillion annually of trade with the United States, about 61% of imports coming from Canada alone. Now, what should be noted is a swift reaction by the three parties concerned. One, Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, says that America is guilty of slander to accuse Mexico of being involved with criminal organizations, and that they will respond with tariff measures and non-tariff measures, but she didn't state specifics. Canada immediately reacted, placing tariffs on $155 billion worth of imports from the United States, starting with $30 billion worth of goods on Tuesday, tomorrow. You talked about valorem.
Yes.
Ad valorem means according to value.
Yes.
So they start with a value of $30 billion tomorrow, and then 21 days later, about the remaining $125 million. China says it is going immediately to the World Trade Organization, tactically avoiding an escalation. This will not be the first time that China will go to the World Trade Organization. Canada made the point that it doesn't have to be this way. Mrs. Sheinbaum, made the point that, look, this can be taken care of through dialogue, not through tariffs. But what is more important is that the rest of the world is panicking. It has put the rest of the world in a panic mode. EU says, well, if you come after us, we'll come after you too.
Straight up.
He says with the UK that, well, he will negotiate with the UK. I think what Trump is just doing is coming up with a bargaining chip for foreign policy, directions now that he's US president. But the battle is going to start. The markets are already reacting.
Correct.
The Asian markets traded lower this morning. Bitcoin has dropped.
Yes.
Oil prices have dropped. WTI by 2%, Brent crude by 1%. Now, quickly, to just talk about something also intelligent, about the sports washing that Rwanda is into. The President Kagame has denied this. He says these allegations are just mere distractions, and that the Rwanda military is not backing anybody in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The international community does not believe him. Now, how would those sports bodies, players, clubs react? Arsenal, Bayern Munich, PSG. Arsenal contract partnership started in 2018.
Yes.
Bayern Munich in 2023, PSG in 2019, right? And then Formula One. and then the World Cycling Championships, who are supposed to have a road championship in Kigali this year.
Yes.
Now, the cycling body has said, well, we are not changing our mind. So, but the position is very clear in what Therese Wagner wrote, that look, Rwanda is responsible for crisis in Eastern Democratic Republic, DRC,
yes,
and that Rwanda is interested in stealing copper, cobalt, and lithium. And then, in fact, just to add a point, this Rwandan government, this DRC government, had petitioned Apple, saying Apple is using materials stolen from Rwanda. So these are the various dimensions.
Definitely.
As for the UK and online abuse for children, I think other countries should follow suit.
Absolutely.
Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, is right. He's saying that when the crime and police bill goes to Parliament, this will be a major issue in that bill.
Well,
to criminalize for the first time
absolutely
online abuse using artificial intelligence.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to our newspapers. There's a lot to get through today, and we will start with the front cover of This Day. Now, This Day leads with an update in this GHL and First Bank debacle following the setting aside of that Mariva order, which unfroze the bank accounts belonging to GHL itself, its directors and shareholders. Now, First Bank says it has appealed against the discharge of the Mariva order and applied for an injunction and or suspension of the discharge order pending the determination of the appeal. The Mariva situation is just one part of a larger ongoing legal jigsaw which centers on this $225 million loan. And First Bank has spoken quite openly, saying that it will use all legal means to pursue the case in order to recover debts owed. Meanwhile, the Federal High Court in Abuja has stopped customs from collecting excise duties on non-alcoholic carbonated drinks from members of the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, which includes the Nigerian Bottling Company and 7-Up Bottling Company. Staying with DHL and the First Bank Mariva dispute, DHL also has a statement on the front of the Nigerian Tribune where it confirms that compliance with the order has been complete. There was some back and forth between some statements released by First Bank, and this is the clarification according to DHL on the front cover of the Tribune. Moving on to the New Telegraph this morning, and it dabbles into the US President Donald Trump's hardline immigration policies as Nigerians in the United States send their families to places of worship, masjids, mosques, and churches for prayers. That is, of course, according to a document compiled by the US Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Removal Operations that say some 3,690 Nigerians in the United States are facing deportation. Now, moving on to other headlines today, there are a few headlines on oil this morning. Let's start with The Guardian, which reports on anxiety over oil output and exploration as 55 licenses are due to expire this year and affected operators are yet to know the fate of their assets. This comes as the prospects of oil production in the north of the country lingers 2 years after former President Muhammadu Buhari flagged off commercial production at that $3 billion Kolmani even integrated development project. The Vanguard this morning focuses on subsidy removal and how oil marketers have expanded borrowings by 76.5% to 3 trillion naira. And this is against the backdrop of sharp rises in cost of procuring products and interest rates in banks. Petroleum marketers have recorded a massive jump in bank borrowing and the cost of doing business. The Punch, however, leads with a decision by the Dangote Petroleum Refinery to reduce the ex-depot price of petrol from 950 naira to 890 naira, coming at a huge cost to many petroleum marketers. Now, in response, some traders are planning to resort to importation of foreign PMS, and they say it remains cheaper than the ex-depot prices of locally refined products. The Daily Trust leads with the federal government's plans to impose a fresh electricity tariff hike. This is in response to mounting pressure from Nigeria's debt-burdened electricity distribution companies for tariffs to be cost-reflective so that they can improve their own finances. And moving on to the United Kingdom, the Daily Telegraph, which reports, as we mentioned, the European Union has warned Donald Trump that it is ready to retaliate against hurtful tariffs as the US president kick-started a global trade war. Now, European leaders, including Olaf Scholz, who is the German German Chancellor, warned that the EU had its own courses of action after the new president said the bloc had treated the United States terribly and would be next in line for tariffs after Canada, China and Mexico. This comes as Sir Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, is set to attend an EU summit since Brexit, his first one, when he travels to Brussels today as part of a reset in relations. And finally, the Eye reports on a major review into the United Kingdom's defence. It's expected to recommend increasing the country's homeland protection against attacks from Russia and other hostile states. So those are your papers from around the world. Let's start
really,
with...
I know it's not the hell, but there's this matter that bothers me. This electricity tariff thing. I know the government is having... I don't even understand what's going on with this government, because in one breath they are saying we have beaten all, revenue targets, we are making more money now, and the next time you are seeing tariffs going up, electricity tariff. Please, I just want to beg, have pity on the people. This talk that you're talking about electricity tariff, we saw how Band A went. We didn't see anything out of it.
Agreed.
So please, have pity on the people. And I think that's something, if NLC wants to strike on that, I support them. Secondly, as regards this Mareva issue, there's a lot of back and forth between both banks. But what this day is saying is that now, because First Bank first said, there were still some injunctions 6 to 11 that they didn't look at in the case. So GHL is now saying that what has happened now is that by First Bank saying they're going to court to be able to challenge this judgment, it shows that they've accepted. And they are also reporting, like they reported in the Tribune newspaper, that most of the Mareva has been, accepted, that most of the courts are now lifting the Mareva because it was a declarative, judgment. But First Bank is saying on the other side that what is happening is that they still have to take the legal department of this bank to be able to study for a while and all
before
of that.
They decide
so
whether or
in
not
a dispute, there's always the two sides, and disputes, as media people here, will get more rounded. I mean, GHL has accused First Bank of lying, falsification and everything, and all of that. First Bank too has made a lot of accusations back and forth. But that's where we are as regards this case.
All right, just to mention that obviously some more clarity has emerged from that particular case. We have stated that it is ongoing. The different sides that have come up. Last week we talked about the announcement by GHL that the Mareva order had been lifted, especially because First Bank had withheld some material facts in their case when they announced that. But in some reports, and a lot of newspapers carried it this morning, in some reports it states that FBN has instituted an appeal to the case, whilst GHL have come out to say that they haven't been served yet, and to the best of their knowledge, this hasn't happened. So a lot of what's out there is exaggerated and not entirely factual. But what they're saying is that a number of banks have started to comply, even though FBN has said they shouldn't be too quick to comply since they have pursued the matter in the appeal court. But like we said, it's unfolding. But what we know, at least substantially, is that that order has been given by Justice Dikbaolu.
Yes.
Banks can comply. The Mareva order has been lifted, and it's declarative in nature. And then also, just to talk about, just to say, when we talk about hikes in tariff, it's also good to hear that when prices go up, they can come down. The announcement, and I think Punch newspaper has it on their front page, of the Dangote Group reducing depot price from 950 to 890. So it's 16 naira reduction. We're hoping to see that reflected in the pump price of petrol, just to give Nigerians a bit of relief, because there's tariff hike here, there, everywhere. So it's great to see that.
Okay, look, this is pure common sense. When a matter is in a court of first instance, that's not the final phase of it. With regard to the dispute between General Hydrocarbons and First Bank, if there is any doubt about the interpretation of any particular ruling between the parties or among the parties involved, the place to go back to seek an interpretation is again the court. So to the extent that the matter is in court, I don't think it is up to us to be the ones, offering interpretations. Most of the people commenting anyway have not even read the ruling, in all the cases. But the thing in a legal dispute is that all the parties involved will try to seek fairness and justice. And that's for the court of law to determine, not for journalists to determine. So that's that about that. The other one that is frightening is the story on the front page of Daily Trust, which says federal government is planning electricity tariff hike.
Yes.
And the frightening thing that the papers published yesterday is that it's going to be up to 65%. Okay. They want to increase telecom tariff turn us into deaf and dumb.
50%.
So that we will not be able to talk to each other again, robbing us of our freedom of speech. Now, electricity, under which people are groaning, band A, that they have promised in terms of efficiency, is grossly inefficient, is a way of extorting money from people, taking people back to the Stone Ages. Now you think government again will come and say 65% tariff to reflect, is it production cost or they call it?
Among them.
Well, by the time they finish, we will be in the dark ages, we will be deaf and dumb, and I've heard some people coming on television to say, well, Nigerians just have to adjust their lifestyles. Which lifestyle? We will start going about with lanterns, we will start playing deaf and dumb, we will not be able to use phone.
Agreed.
Because these phones have become a reality of our lives. Absolutely. Imagine if you are not with your phone for 2 hours. Imagine if you are not with electricity. Businesses will collapse.
Yes. Agreed.
No, where is the Consumer Protection Council of Nigeria? Where are the consumer protection NGOs? We, the long-suffering people of Nigeria, please don't further compound our suffering. I understand all the argument about business environment and all of that. But please, these tariffs must wear a human face.
Thank you. And that's on period. This tariff must wear a human face. We need to really speak up. It's becoming a bit too much. But I'm glad that we're going to be speaking to the Rural Electrification Agency, the chief, coming to us later on today. But thank you so much, Adefemi.
Welcome,
Always great to have you on the show.